They say karma doesn't carry a clock, but that afternoon she arrived with perfect timing. Karen Whitfield was rooted to her front lawn, her jaw slack, eyes wide, watching in helpless disbelief as a bright yellow tow truck slowly hoisted her flawless white SUV into the air. The mechanical groan of the hydraulic lift tore through the otherwise peaceful suburb like a battle cry. Beside her, Officer Martinez stood calm and steady, the sunlight glinting off the steel handcuffs at her belt like an unspoken warning. One by one, neighbors slipped out of their houses, curiosity written on their faces. Some leaned lazily against porch railings, coffee cups in hand. Others pretended to be busy with flower beds, but their stolen glances betrayed their true interest. I stayed right where I was, on my porch, phone in hand, capturing every glorious second of justice in real time. After 3 long months of enduring entitlement, harassment, and constant illegal parking, the day had finally come. Karen was being served exactly what she'd earned, and oh, it was beautiful. To truly understand why this moment was so satisfying, you need the backstory. 3 months earlier, I moved into Willowbrook Estates, a neighborhood so obsessively polished it felt like a backdrop for a film set. Lawns were trimmed with military precision, mailboxes had to be uniform, and the HOA rulebook was thicker than most court transcripts. Because of a spinal injury, I use a wheelchair, which meant the designated handicap space outside my townhouse wasn't just a convenience, it was essential. The spot had been freshly painted in bright blue, with the official signpost installed and properly registered with the city and HOA before I even unpacked my boxes. That was when I met Karen Whitfield. Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-proclaimed monarch of Willowbrook Estates. She'd held the HOA presidency for 4 straight years and treated the bylaws like scripture, unless, of course, following them interfered with her own comfort. In her early 50s, always dressed like she was on her way to a country club brunch, Karen had perfected the art of the insult wrapped in politeness. From the moment I arrived, she eyed that handicap spot like it was an eyesore staining her perfect kingdom. The trouble started immediately. Within my first week, I came home from physical therapy to find her white SUV parked squarely in my reserved handicap spot. I wheeled myself to her front door, rang the bell, and explained politely, showing her both my placard and documentation. Karen smiled that syrupy fake smile and cooed, "Oh, sweetie, I was just grabbing some papers inside for a minute. Surely you can find another spot just this once." She didn't move the car. That night I had to park 3 blocks away and struggle over uneven sidewalks in my chair just to reach my own home. And that was only the beginning. From then on, Karen treated my space like her personal convenience. At least twice a week, her SUV was planted there. Each time I confronted her, she trotted out flimsy excuses, unloading groceries, running inside for a moment, picking up dry cleaning. Finally, I filed a formal complaint with the HOA. But since Karen was the HOA president, her official response was that parking infractions were a low priority and would be addressed when feasible. In other words, she dismissed a complaint against herself. At monthly HOA meetings, I raised the issue again, citing both city law and ADA regulations. Karen sat at the head table, tapping manicured nails on her notepad, flashing that thin-lipped smile, and saying things like, "We all need to share our resources with flexibility," or, "Perhaps you could be more considerate of your neighbor's needs too." The other board members either nodded obediently or avoided my eyes altogether. Karen didn't need allies. She ruled with intimidation alone, so I adapted. I began documenting every single violation. Photos of her SUV in my space, clear shots. Of the license plate, the handicap signage, the date and time, all neatly logged. Karen noticed, and she didn't like it. One evening she stormed over accusing me of harassment. Not long after, I received a formal letter claiming my photo taking created an unwelcoming environment and violated HOA policy. The hypocrisy was staggering. But the worst incident happened one exhausting afternoon in October. I returned from therapy to find Karen's SUV not only in my spot, but blocking the striped access aisle, the one I needed to lower my wheelchair ramp. I was sore, frustrated, and near the end of my patience. I wheeled up to her front door and knocked. She opened it wearing pearls and a silk blouse, clearly dressed for some high society outing. She glanced down at my wheelchair like it was an inconvenience in her way and said, "Oh, I'm late for a luncheon with the mayor's wife." "You'll just have to wait until I return this evening," Karen said smugly. I paused, drew in a breath, and forced a smile. "Of course, Karen, totally understandable." I rolled back to my place, pulled out my phone, and dialed the city's parking enforcement line. I calmly explained the situation, and the dispatcher assured me someone would be sent soon. True to their word, 45 minutes later, Officer Martinez pulled up, right behind a rumbling tow truck driven by a stocky man named Pete. Without hesitation, Martinez began snapping photos while Pete prepared the rig. That's when Karen came flying. Out her front door, flustered and indignant, like a reality TV contestant furious about being eliminated. "Officer, there's been a huge mistake," she exclaimed. "I'm the HOA president. I was just about to move my car." Martinez hardly glanced at her. "Ma'am, this vehicle has been parked in violation of Municipal Code 12-4 for over an hour. We have documented evidence and an official complaint." Karen's voice shot up into a shrill pitch. "This is ridiculous. I live here. I serve this community. Surely we can discuss this like adults." Then, with one final jab, she pointed directly at me. "He's just trying to cause problems because he doesn't like me." Martinez didn't flinch. "Ma'am, ADA violations fall under federal law. Your HOA position does not exempt you from compliance. Please provide your license and registration." That's when Karen made her first major mistake. She crossed her arms and snapped, "I'm not giving you anything until I speak to your supervisor. This is harassment. He's been stalking me. For weeks." Martinez stepped closer, hand hovering near her radio. "Ma'am, you are required by law to comply. Refusal to provide identification constitutes obstruction of justice." Karen's face burned crimson. "I am not some criminal. You cannot treat me this way." And then she made mistake number 2. She physically stepped between Pete and her SUV, spreading her arms wide to block the tow. Pete gave Martinez a tired look. "Lady, you need to move. I'm just doing my job." Karen planted her feet, jaw locked. "I'm not moving until someone in authority handles this. This is my neighborhood." Martinez calmly unclipped her handcuffs. Her voice was steady, professional, and absolute. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for obstruction of justice and interference with official duties. Your vehicle will also be impounded under ADA enforcement protocols." Karen's bravado cracked. "Wait, what? You're arresting me? I volunteer at the library. I run fundraisers. This is insane." But it was too late. Martinez turned her around, cuffed her wrists, and began reading her rights. Karen's desperate voice rose as she struggled. "Call my husband. Call the mayor. You don't know who I am." By now, nearly the entire neighborhood was outside. Mrs. Patterson had her phone out, filming the whole thing. The Johnson kids had set up lawn chairs like it was movie night. Even old Mr. Henderson smirked for the first time in years. Karen's SUV creaked as Pete hauled it onto the flatbed. She twisted in the officer's grasp, ranting about responsibilities and board meetings, but not a single neighbor stepped forward to defend her. Martinez opened the squad car, guided Karen inside, and shut the door on her, shouting. Pete revved the tow truck's engine and rolled away like a hero after a battle won. As the cruiser pulled off, the crowd buzzed with whispers. Some clapped. Some just shook their heads. I stayed on my porch, phone still recording, satisfaction spreading through me like warmth. Karen spent the night in jail. She faced 3 charges: ADA violations, obstruction, and interfering with official duties. Between court fees and fines, she owed over $3,000. Her arrest became public record almost immediately, and word spread like wildfire. Every committee she once controlled cut ties with her. At an emergency HOA meeting 3 days later, the vice president read her resignation aloud. Karen's reign was finished. Even better, the HOA introduced strict new rules on accessible parking enforcement. 2 weeks later, their attorney called me personally. Because of the liability tied to her arrest, Karen was permanently banned from ever holding any leadership role within the association. Her little empire had crumbled. In court, she was sentenced to 18 months probation, mandatory community service, and slapped with a record that would shadow her forever. Witnesses said she sat silently during sentencing, eyes forward, finally forced to taste accountability. Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it arrives in flashing lights, a tow truck, and a calm voice saying, "You're under arrest." And I wouldn't have changed a thing. Karma had clocked in right on time. Love watching justice unfold? Subscribe for more real stories where karma comes with sirens, or sometimes with a tow truck. Don't forget to like, comment, and share if you've ever had a nightmare neighbor. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next.